Hello, Year 4, happy Monday. I hope you have all had a fantastic half term and that you are all feeling refreshed and ready to start with this half term's home learning. So, today in literacy, you are going to be doing a piece of work from your Comprehension Year 4 workbook, Book 2. You're looking at page 8 and it's titled Grr. Before I start, our learning question for today is, can I use inference when answering questions about a text? So we're going to be looking at the language used in the text today, and we're going to infer why the poet, because it's a poem today, why the poet has made the word choices that they have chosen, and we're going to perhaps infer feelings and things like the type of person that would perhaps write this poem, okay? So just wanted to check in that and make sure that everybody's got the right book. So make sure that this is the correct workbook for this video. Remember, we'll be doing our comprehension on Mondays and Tuesdays, our writing Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. Okay, just a little warm up for you guys to get started. Now, we've looked at poems before half term. I want you to write a definition of what a poem is, and I want you to give 3 examples of different types of poems. So thinking back to the poetry event that we had with Nick Sheraton's school, I know it was a long time ago, the poems that we wrote for Remembrance Day. Okay, have a think about the different types of poems that you have written and the different types of poems that you have read. Okay, so your new vocab for today is on the screen in front of you. So our first word is key. Now, it's not the type of key that lets you open your house or your car or a window. It is a key which is the pitch of in which a piece of music is written. So it's not something you can see. It is something you can't really touch it, but it is something in which explains to musicians when they play a piece of music what key they need to be in, so what pitch they need to be in, and that tells them which key they've got to play. Okay, so a piano has keys and that'll be the pitch for the song. We've also got the phrase rhyme scheme, and this is where a pattern of rhymes, this is where you will find a pattern of rhymes at the end of each line in a poem. So you might have a poem that has rhyming couplets at the end of each line, okay? So that's all that means by rhyme scheme. Now, before we go on to look at the questions, I'm just going to read a little bit about the text that you're going to do today, just to help you with your understanding, okay? So you need to make sure that you are on pages 8 to 9 for today's lesson. Now, this poem was written by the performance poet Francesca Beard. Now, performance poets are people that would stand up in front of an audience and read their work out. So Francesca Beard, the poet, will have written this and then read it aloud to a crowd, okay? It is written from the perspective of a child who is having a tantrum. The unreasonable threats made by the narrator, as well as Beard's strong rhyme scheme, make the poem enjoyable to read. Beard uses a variety of punctuation and the capitalization, so that's capital letters, to give directions on how her poem should be performed. So it's saying here that Francesca has made sure that certain words either have exclamation marks, question marks, full stops, commas after them for things like pauses or to direct the reader to shout or question the words. And it also says here that they use capitalization, so that's using capital letters. And a lot of us know that when we look at capital letters in text, that they're usually there because it's at the start of a sentence. But if you've got a word that's written in all capital letters, we know that that's because they're perhaps shouting. So we know then that we'd need to shout the word. Okay, so Your job for today, when you read this poem, is to figure out how it needs to be read. So I would like you today, instead of reading in your head, to read it to someone, okay? Because there are lots of words in here that need to be read in certain ways. So I want you to have a go at figuring out what I mean when I say it needs to be read in a certain way. So, hopefully you've had a go at reading through the poem at least twice. Now I suggest you read it out loud. Now the title of our poem is Grrr. Now think very carefully about the emoji that I've got on my board and the question that I'm about to ask. So the question says, why do you think the poet chose the title Grrr? Okay. So looking at the emoji that I've put on my screen, why might the poet have chosen Grrr as their title? So you will have read the poem, you will have recognised what the poem is about, what emotion might be involved in the poem. So what emotion could you think that this person is in? Why do you think that she chose the title Grrr? Okay, so I've started us off just to get us warmed up because we have had a week off. After reading the poem, I think that the title Grrr was chosen, and then you need to put because. Why do we think it was chosen? What type of sound is Grrr? Is it a happy sound? Does it sound like somebody having a laugh? Does it sound like somebody is crying? What emotion do we associate with the sound Grrr? Okay, so have a think and give it a go. Now use that STEM sentence there to help you. Remember, we are still working on developing our sentences when we come to answer our comprehension questions. Now I've left question 2 out because it's asking you for 2 pairs of rhyming, 2 pairs of words that rhyme. Okay, so that means you will have 4 words in total. There will be pairs, so there'll be 1 pair that rhyme and another pair that rhyme. So bat, cat, pin, din. That would be 2 pairs of words that rhyme. Okay, so those 2 would rhyme, those 2 would rhyme. Okay, so make sure that you've got 4 words for question 2. Moving on to question 3. Why do you think the word yell is written in 4 different ways on lines 11 and 12? Why do you think the poet chose to do this? Now I've typed out the 4 different ways that the words yell are represented. So I'm going to read them out, and I am giving you a really big clue here as to when I read them out, why the poet has chosen to write them in these 4 different ways. Yell, 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 yell. So it might not sound like I've done it differently, but I've tried to put emphasis on certain letters in those words to help you to recognise why the poet has written yell in 4 different ways. Okay, so think very carefully for this one. It is a very tricky one. Now, I'll give you a clue. There are more capital letters as you go on. So our first word only has 2 capital letters. Our second word has 3. And our third and fourth word both have 4 capital letters, but our fourth one should have an exclamation mark. Okay, so why do you think that our poet Francesca has decided to write yell in different ways? Now, is it because she wants to show how angry the narrator is? It could be. Do you think it's because she didn't know how to type out the word yell properly? Or do you think she wanted to do it for a bit of fun to see if anyone would notice? What do you think? Now remember, based on my introduction at the start and what I explained about the text, why do we think these words have been written the way that they have? So think very carefully. You're inferring here an emotion to do with the way that these words are represented in the text. So we discussed the emotion in question 1. Just have a think, is it the same emotion for question 3? Okay. So question 4 is asking you why there's so many exclamation marks after the word riot. So you need to have a look at the word riot, have a think, why do we think that is? Now remember, that's going to be a presentation question. Have a think, is it to show anger, excitement, surprise? Remember, keep inferring the emotions for this poem because that's what we're working on, our inference. Question 5 asks, why do you think the poet put the last line of the poem in brackets? Now if you look carefully at your poem, very last line says, now I'm ready to be quiet. Why have they put that in brackets? Why have they put, now I'm ready to be quiet, in brackets? Again, that is another presentation thing, a presentation question, because we've got our brackets, haven't we, year 4? So it's a presentation question, so it'll be looking for a presentation answer. So why have we got those words written in brackets? How did I just read it? So think how Miss Prince has read it to you and the reason why we have those brackets, okay? So question number 6 is asking you, who do you think is talking in the poem? How can you tell? Now, Miss Prince was very cheeky and she actually mentioned who the narrator was at the start. So the narrator is the person that will be reading the poem aloud. That'll be the person who's talking as if it's their poem. So imagine that it's not Francesca, it's someone else reading the poem. Miss Prince did give the game away at the start of the lesson, so have a think, who do you think it could be? Now I've given you some picture clues here to help you. Do you think it's a child having a tantrum? Do you think it's a grumpy dog? Or do you think it's a mum who's really frustrated because she can't cope with home learning any longer? What do you think? Who do you think it might be that is reading this poem out loud, and how can you tell? So look at the word choices. Remember, infer again. And I want you to have a read, have a think, and think about the different types of actions and behaviour that this person is talking about in the poem, and make a link. Who do you think it's going to be? So what you already know about children, dogs, mums, who is the closest person in this poem to be the narrator? Okay, so have a guess. And then question 7 at the end is asking you, would you like to meet the narrator? And you've got to explain why. So yes or no. Yes, I'd like to meet the narrator because, or no, I wouldn't like to meet the narrator. So again, that one's asking for your opinion, and we've got really good at working out opinion questions, okay? So after you've had a go at all 7 questions for GUR, I want you to have a go at my challenge. So can you create an alternative title for the poem GUR? So can you think of a different title that does the same job as the one that they've already got, that the poem already has, okay? So I just wanted to do it for a bit of fun to see what you could come up with, and it'd be interesting to see the different titles that we have for this poem. Okay. So just coming to the end of the lesson now, I want you to think of one thing that you feel is important to remember from today's lesson. Was it a piece of new vocabulary? Was it learning about a certain type of poem? Was it inferring? Was it developing your skill of inference? Was it making sure that you could understand the question? What skill is it, or what piece of learning has been most important to you from today's lesson? Okay, now I hope this has been a good first lesson back for all of you. I know you've had a week off, so you probably don't feel like you want to do your home learning, but I hope you've all done a really good job. I hope that you've given it all a really good go, and I can't wait to see what you send in to our Year 4 email address for your home learning for today. Now remember, we've got one more lesson on comprehension, and then the rest of the week we'll be looking at writing. Okay, any questions? please do not hesitate to contact me using the Year 4 email address, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye!